So we all know SpongeBob, right? That little yellow sponge who was always laughing, smiling, annoying his neighbor, and just all around being a goofy character with a starfish by the name of Patrick, who is his best friend. Well, now that we have the introduction all settled, I'd like to let you all know that I have, or rather had, a very rare copy of a SpongeBob episode written by none other than Steven Hillenburg. While roaming around Nickelodeon Studios in June 2008, let me tell you, the tickets to get in were not easy to get. Anyway, I ran into Mr. Hillenburg and in one of the main areas of the studio. No, literally, I ran into him. See, I kind of snuck into a high security area, and well, I ended up alerting guards, and you get the gist of it. After bumping into him, I apologized. Mr. Hillenburg looked as though he was in a daze. I waved my hand in front of him, but he continued on work past me. This made me a little uneasy. Once he walked away, I spotted something on the ground where I had bumped into Hillenburg. It was a videotape. It didn't have anything of discernible title, nor of anything remotely close to what the video was about. No sticker, nothing on the inside of the film protector or anything. I picked it up and ran very quickly out of the lot. About a week later, after my initial journey by plane back to Chicago, I remembered that I still had that tape. Seeing as I had a VHS to DVD burner that I got for Christmas last year, I decided to get a blank DVD-R disc and put it into the DVD side of the burner and the video inside of the VHS side. After about 30 minutes or so, it popped out of the disc and the video came out. I think that's what they're supposed to do when a disc is done burning anyway. I popped the DVD into my computer. Autoplay popped up, of course, because I had modified my computer to do so. I decided to look into the folder for it. There's a movie file that went by the name of Pearl.avi. Pearl. I then double-clicked the movie file as the Windows Media Center popped up. Are you ready, kids? Aye, aye, Captain. It was a SpongeBob episode. I thought to myself, oh, I haven't seen this show in so long. SpongeBob was one of my favorite shows as a 10-year-old, and hearing the nasally laughter of the sponge who would make my ears absolutely sing with joy. Well, metaphorically, of course. So as the title of the episode came up, I noticed something odd. There was no title to the episode, it just skipped right into the episode. It showed the three things I knew and loved about SpongeBob. The three main houses, the pineapple, the Easter Island head, and the rock with an antenna on it. I smiled with nostalgia as I heard SpongeBob's laughter echoing through the computer speakers. SpongeBob was watching a TV show on his little diver helmet TV. About 5 seconds after the scene transitioned into SpongeBob's house, and Pearl, Mr. Krabs' daughter, burst through SpongeBob's door, breaking the door down as she always does. She's seen sobbing hysterically in a comedic manner, mini waterfalls coming out of her eyes. SpongeBob begins to walk over and ask Pearl what's wrong. Pearl replies, "Oh, SpongeBob, it's fucking terrible." Not said anyway. Daddy won't talk to me. He hasn't said a single word to me all day. He just sits in his bedroom looking down at the floor, sighing. SpongeBob replies back to her in a bit of a heroic way. "Mr. Krabs? That seems weird." "Don't worry, Pearl. I'll go talk to him." "You will, SpongeBob?" Pearl replies with a look of happiness on her face. SpongeBob then nods. Pearl is seen hugging SpongeBob and saying, "Thanks, SpongeBob. You're the coolest." The screen transitions with bubbles coming up of SpongeBob nearing the giant anchor that Mr. Krabs and Pearl live in, saying, "Cool, huh? Cha-cha." And you hear a jazz trumpet chorus playing as SpongeBob is seen doing a comedically cool stance and look. He then knocks on Mr. Krabs' door. We then see Mr. Krabs' claw quickly grab SpongeBob and pull him into his home. "SpongeBob, me boy, I'm glad you're here. I have to tell you something." "What is it, Mr. Krabs?" SpongeBob asks. It's about Pearl. You see, she's... SpongeBob, confused by Mr. Krabs' stammering, asks, "She's what, Mr. Krabs?" A grim look comes upon his face. "She's adopted, me boy." SpongeBob gasps. "Adopted?" A claw grabs SpongeBob's lips. They're seen being comedically stretched forward. "Shh! She might be out there listening. Now, me boyo, I want to tell you that she is adopted. I can't do it. Tears begin to well up in Mr. Krabs' eyes. I just can't. SpongeBob looks shocked at this, but Mr. Krabs, I can't do that. It'll break her fragile heart. SpongeBob, that's in order. Mr. Krabs says with sadness and frustration in his eyes. Yes, sir, SpongeBob said, whilst he saluted and began to run out panting. I, at this point, was starting to get a bit uneasy. This wasn't the SpongeBob SquarePants I knew back in the day. This was something else, something more adult. Now, even though I liked more adult stuff, this episode just made me really uneasy. Telling someone they're adopted is not an easy task, trust me. Horrid results when it's told to you by means of someone whose parents told you to that person. The last time I had to do that, I had to coax someone out of committing suicide anyway. Now, back to the episode. The screen transitions again, back to SpongeBob's house, where Pearl is seen sniffling as SpongeBob pops his head into the busted doorway. Pearl looks up and immediately is overjoyed to see him. SpongeBob! She calls out with an excited tone. Did you find out why Daddy won't talk to me? SpongeBob says timidly as he clears his throat. Yes, I did. Pearl says in a concerned tone. What's wrong, SpongeBob? We then hear SpongeBob's thoughts. What did I do? Should I tell her? Or should I lie to Mr. Krabs? No, lying wouldn't do a thing. Mr. Krabs would probably dock my pay to half a penny a day if I did that. This made me do a small chuckle as I knew Mr. Krabs was a cheapskate. My chuckle fell silent as I heard SpongeBob just outright say, Pearl, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're adopted. Pearl's eyes opened wide and both SpongeBob and I cringed. I then heard a laugh coming from the computer speakers. It was Pearl's laugh. That's a good one, SpongeBob, but really, why won't Daddy talk to me? Pearl, it's the truth. Mr. Krabs said, come over here to tell you. What? No, you're lying! Pearl then slaps SpongeBob very realistically and storms out of the house. We then see Pearl walking to the front door with tears in her eyes, furious as she pushes open the door forcibly. She sees her father and, holding back tears, Daddy, please tell me this is not true. Please tell me SpongeBob is lying. Mr. Krabs begins to tear up, and in a shaky voice tells Pearl, yes, 'tis true. When you were a baby, and while I was out scrounging around with me metal detector near the outskirts of Bikini Bottom looking for some loose change, I stumbled upon you and your mother, or what left of her after the scalps got to her. It then transitions to a flashback sequence to which this day makes me cringe. It showed Pearl's mother's eyes gouged out with one hanging, her tongue out and somewhat chewed off, her fins only bone, her ribs cage ripped off, revealing decaying muscle, and her throat had a hole in it showing the larynx, the windpipe, and the esophagus. I turned away at this point, still listening. I found your mother laying there, morbidly decayed, when I heard a crying coming from nearby. The crying was you. I looked like you just come out of your mother. I scooped you up and took you home, and cleaned you up. I kept you for around a good 16 years. I felt like it were better to tell you now when you were old enough to understand. I started crying at this precise point. This became too adult, too real for the happy little show I used to know and love. I wanted to click the X in the top right corner, but I just couldn't turn away. Pearl ran out crying. Not the comedic tears either. These looked realistic. Almost human. SpongeBob, me boy, go after her! These tiny legs won't catch up to her. Please, boyo. SpongeBob nodded and began to run after Pearl, calling her name. Pearl began to run faster, and SpongeBob began to struggle keeping up with her. Pearl stopped at the top of a high coral cliff, turned around, and told SpongeBob, stop. She put a fan out. Do you know what it's like to not know your mother? To be with some creepy crustacean all your life, thinking he's your dad, even though you two look completely different? I mean, How can a crab have a sperm whale for a child? Pearl's voice was getting very shaky. She was ready to start sobbing uncontrollably. I don't think you do. To be lied to all your life. To not know your true family. I don't want to be lied to anymore. Pearl then began to proceed to fall backwards into the seemingly endless chasm. SpongeBob yelled out, "Wait, Pearl!" and ran down to the cliff slope where she had just ran after Pearl. He ran as fast as he could, but couldn't get down to the bottom before he heard a loud, disgusting crack. I even cringed at this sound. It sounded like a bone snapping in two. As SpongeBob approached Pearl, she seemed face up with her head violently pushed to the side. Her neck had snapped right in two. Her eyes were a gray blue now, and were about as soulless as any person who had succumbed to death. SpongeBob walked to her silently, his shoes no longer making that funny squeaking sound. He dropped to his knees realistically next to her corpse and began to sob, humanly and uncontrollably. He hugged the corpse, looked up to the sky. He began to say, "Why, Neptune? Why? She was too young. Why?" This caused me to sob right along with the sponge. The episode then cut to black and was finished. I couldn't believe it. Why would Mr. Hillenberg make such a demented and depressing episode? I went to bed after this. The next day, after coming home from work, I planned to extract the episode onto my hard drive and put it onto YouTube in about 2 parts. It was a 15-minute episode, of course. When I got home, I saw everything that was a mess. Papers were everywhere and my TV was gone. My computer and its accompanying tower, house, mouses, and any USBs I had in it were gone. My VHS to DVD burner was gone. Oh, fucking shit, I've been robbed. Where's the video? Where is it? I said as I began to look for the video that contained this episode. I couldn't find it. That was the only VHS tape I had in my possession, and I guess the robbers figured out it'd be worth money. I kind of figured as well too. So, suffice to say, I'm unable to provide a video of the source. I apologize and hope you all heed my warning of picking up any strange tape in a famous studio after bumping into a famous cartoon writer. I don't think anyone willing to seeing as suicidemouse.avi was up on YouTube. Once again, let the story be a warning to pick up strange tapes. You'll never know what you're going to end up watching.